It was a room that basically screamed, library, at you. The room was twice as large as a 350 square foot room, and there were bookcases set up all over the place, going from one corner of the room to the other. Every bookcase was so tightly packed with books that it was hard to imagine how many books it truly held. Books took up a lot of space and were heavy, so it was a problem to have so many. In Subaru's case, his whole family loved to read manga, and there used to be a room on the second floor of his house that was filled to the brim with books, especially manga. One day, without any warning, the floor fell through, and it was a complete renovation disaster. Fortunately, no one was injured, and Subaru has since put them all in a dedicated book storage room, so they should never experience that kind of catastrophe again. Even from the perspective of Subaru, who has such an experience involving books, the number of books in this room exceeded the number of books in his house even with the floors removed. Of course, the structure of the mansion itself was much sturdier than that of his house. Finding even one book to read, that Subaru could understand, would be a tall order for him, considering the enormous number of books in his view. With so many books here, there must be one that I can read, right? A quick glance around the library revealed that there were no spine covers written in Japanese. There were no alphabets here as far as he knew, and most of the letters were characters based on what he'd seen on the signboards while walking around the capital. These were the commonly used characters of this world, after all. If Subaru wanted to live in this world, it was going to be essential to learn it. For him, who had even dropped his language classes in middle school, it already felt like such a drag. Subaru sighed while envisioning his coming difficulties, then, gazing at other people's bookshelves, and even sighing as you do so, so you're trying to be offensive, I suppose. Shall I respond in kind, I wonder? Subaru stiffened. He wasn't great at talking to people he'd never met before, and his brain stalled at the unexpected confrontation. His mouth opened and closed as he scrambled for a response, only to blurt out, okay, this is already going badly. Hold on, just gimme a sec. With a hasty, awkward wave, he turned on his heel and stepped out of the room. Outside, he let out a breath, rubbing his temples. Okay. Reset. I got this, he muttered under his breath. Taking another breath, he re-entered the room and looked at the little girl who hadn't moved an inch from where she had been standing. Oh wow. Look who's here. Hi. Nice to meet you. Can I have a word with you? He said with an exaggerated smile that even he knew was a little too forced. Betty knew you were making fun of her, I suppose. Don't you think you deserve to be punished for entering Betty's library without an invitation, I suppose? The little girl laughed adorably and cruelly at Subaru as he tried to restart their encounter from a better position. How many times have I seen this sight in this other world? She was a beautiful, sweet girl. She appeared to be younger than felt, perhaps 11 or 12 years old. She was wearing an indigo-colored dress with lots of frills and had a lovely face that suited her ornate hairstyle and clothes. Her hair was closest to the color of cream and was grown long and rolled into curls. It looked like drills. Adorable came to mind, and the little girl's appearance seemed to be the embodiment of that word. The cuteness level was so high that one's heart couldn't help but melt if she were to smile. Now she was standing in front of Subaru with a solemn face. You'll ruin your pretty face if you don't smile. You see, just smile. Smile. Smile, Subaru said, still feeling out of his depth. Betty being pretty is simply Betty's nature, but a better question would be, what should Betty do with you, I suppose? Do what with me? Sorry, I didn't really get what you were going for. Subaru scratched the back of his head, feeling awkward. I kinda just blundered into the right answer somehow, even though I'm sure the GM would rather I go through all the events he set up. He had a habit of unintentionally making the right choice in situations where there were only a handful of hints. Some might call it lucky. Others would call it not being able to read the mood. There had been plenty of times Subaru had unknowingly ruined an event by skipping straight to the solution. The endless hallway loop was just another to add to the list. Trying to do your business in the hallway of someone else's house, getting in here without triggering the mana-sensing traps, there's only one word to describe you. The worst, in fact. Haha, yeah, I guess that does sound bad when you put it like that. Subaru averted his eyes, feeling his face heat up. But it's not like I meant to. I just, kept moving forward until I ended up here. If this were a visual novel, he probably would have skipped past all the side events without meaning to. Not because he wanted to rush things, just because he wasn't great at paying attention to what was expected of him. Shaking off that thought, Subaru turned his attention back to the little girl. Judging from what she had said, she was definitely the one responsible for the looping hallway, and the whole "no bathroom for you" ordeal was just another one of her tricks. Yet, somehow, he managed to bypass it all. I get that you want to show off, but messing with someone's basic needs like that is just cruel. I almost died of embarrassment back there. Subaru sighed, slumping his shoulders. Thinking about it makes me want to disappear. Now that she thinks about it, Betty should have let you run in circles a while longer. In fact, that would have saved Betty at least half the humiliation, I suppose. Why you don't have to sound so smug about it. Subaru pouted, shifting anxiously from foot to foot. His earlier ordeal had left him shaken, and his pressing biological needs weren't helping his focus. The little girl sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. Betty is growing tired of you. In fact, Roswell lets that girl do whatever she wants without consequences, and now Betty has to clean up this mess, I suppose. You're tired? But you're so young. Kids should be playing outside, soaking up the sun. Wrinkling your eyebrows all the time is just boring. Subaru threw up his hands before offering a weak thumbs up. Come on, life's strong. The phrase was something he'd picked up in the slums of the capital. He hadn't been sure how to feel about it at first, but it had started growing on him. The little girl stared at him blankly, her expression unreadable. Subaru, feeling awkward, tried to lighten the mood with a small, sheepish grin. Wait, that reaction is not what Betty expected, I suppose. You're creeping Betty out, in fact. Hey, you didn't have to say the whole phrase like that. You're making it weird. Subaru huffed before quickly shaking his head. Hey, anyway, can we just get to the point? If we drag this out too long, I'm gonna be in trouble. I don't understand what the second half of that means, but Betty has a feeling we should move on for Betty's sake, I suppose. Okie dokie. So, Subaru stopped himself before blurting out the question weighing on his mind. If he asked where the bathroom was, she'd probably use that to torture him further. No, best to stay focused. No matter how he looked at it, this girl was definitely a magic user. The looping hallway alone was proof enough. And if she could do that so easily, Subaru had no chance of opposing her. Besides, he was in no condition to fight. He was still recovering from life-threatening injuries, he was exhausted, and he was starving. After all the running earlier, his body felt weak, and the blood loss certainly wasn't helping. Ugh, I need food. Something with iron, liver. A heaping serving of pork liver with garlic chives would do the trick. Right now, I'm the one who's bloodthirsty. This boy, what are you even talking about now, I suppose? Oh, never mind that. Let's just move on. Subaru quickly straightened up, clearing his throat. So, what is this place? It seemed wise to get information while the girl was still willing to talk. He needed to confirm where he was, at the very least. While he didn't think Elsa had captured him, he couldn't be sure. But the girl simply replied, it's Betty's bedroom, I suppose. Oh, well, that's direct. Subaru blinked. I know kids these days think being blunt is cool and all, but isn't it a little too literal? His weak attempt at humor didn't seem to land. The little girl, Betty, puffed out her cheeks, clearly unimpressed. She crossed her arms, giving a small huff as she stepped toward him. Betty has had enough, I suppose. Betty has a feeling she's going to have to teach you a lesson, in fact. Oh, come on. Abusing prisoners is barbaric. Don't do it. I'm just a normal guy who has to endure the urge to pee, and that makes me less dangerous than the average person. That makes you more dangerous due to your desperation, in fact. Damn, that's clever. Crap, I can't think of a single thing to do to prove that I'm not a bad guy. Listen, I am not a bad guy. She shook her head in small increments, her determined gaze unwavering. Her eyes moistened as she shrank into herself, yet her steps didn't slow. Instead, they grew faster. And then she said, don't you dare move, in fact. A shiver ran down Subaru's spine at those words. The scent of old paper, which had dominated the library, vanished in an instant. The shift was unnatural. The stabbing coldness plunged into his nose, and then came the high-pitched ringing in his ears. His skin paled, his limbs stiffened. His senses were being altered. That much was obvious. His ability to smell had been stripped away, likely to heighten his sight and touch. A realization that did nothing to soothe the gnawing dread in his chest. The little girl in front of him was already within reach. She barely stood as tall as his chest, her shallow blue eyes gazing up at him. Her pale pink lips curled into a smile, soft, innocent. But that innocence only made Subaru's alarm grow louder. Do you have something to say, I wonder? She asked, tilting her head, her voice sweet yet unsettling. Sweat trickled down Subaru's forehead. He felt so small, so weak, so powerless. But that was nothing new, was it? He always felt that way. He just pretended he didn't. He needed to say something. Anything. But what could he say? What could possibly turn this around? Maybe something casual. Something dumb. Something to make it seem like he wasn't actually panicking inside. Is it gonna hurt? Betty is impressed you can be so light-hearted in this situation, I suppose. Betty guesses it's up to you whether it hurts or not, in fact. Her small hand pressed against his chest. A chill ran up his spine, his breath hitching. Brr. Then came the fire. A sensation unlike anything he had ever felt before tore through him, spreading from his chest to his fingertips, up to the roots of his hair. His whole body felt like it was being incinerated from the inside out. His vision blurred, and before he knew it, he was on his knees. His breath came in ragged gasps, his body trembling. His muscles ached, his head throbbed. Everything hurt. But worse than the pain was the emptiness. He felt drained, hollow, like something vital had been yanked from his core. It looks like you didn't pass out, I suppose. Just like Betty was told, you're quite sturdy, in fact. What the hell did you do to me? Drill lowly. Betty simply took out some of the mana inside your body, I suppose. It seems to have a special shape, in fact, even though you're just an ordinary guy. Your gate also seems to be closed, in fact. Her words barely registered. Subaru barely had the strength to lift his head, let alone comprehend what she was saying. He tried to move, to push himself up, but she poked him, and his arms collapsed beneath him. Well, it confirms that you're hostile, I suppose, and for all the disrespect towards Betty and the hard work Betty has done, taking your mana should be suitable payment, I suppose. Another poke. Another thud as his body hit the floor. This is the third time I've kissed the ground in a face-down position. Actually, no, this isn't even the first time. Since I returned by death, this is totally my first kiss. Summoning what little strength he had left, he shifted his head, forcing himself to look at the little girl. She watched him struggle with mild amusement. Why was she looking at him like that? Did she think this was funny? That he was just some plaything? It made him feel small again. Like he always did. Why was he like this? Why did he have to be so weak? Forcing out a weak laugh, he bared his teeth. You're not human, are you? And I don't just mean your personality. For all the times you've seen Bubby, you're a little slow on the uptake, I suppose. Her words were light, almost mocking. She was toying with him. Like a child pulling the wings off an insect just to see what would happen. One correction, Subaru muttered. In terms of personality, you're not even human either. Don't measure a noble and sublime being by your standards, human. Her tone was cruel. Unnaturally so. Something twisted in Subaru's gut. Anger? Frustration? He wasn't sure. But whatever it was, he had no energy left to do anything about it. The darkness was creeping in. Come on. I just woke up, and I'm being rendered unconscious again. I will speak to the others, I suppose. It would be troublesome if you started leaking here, I suppose. What if I just let it all out now? No, I don't have enough guts to say that. His mouth refused to work, his vision blurred, and then, finally, he lost consciousness.